Well, good afternoon, dear friends. Welcome to the Chief Customer Officer or Director of Customer Care course. Today, we have our first class about the role and responsibilities of the Customer Care Director. It's a new position and a new course, so it's very interesting. Why do you need to take this course? Well, let's face it. Customers are the greatest asset of any company. They are hard to find and very easy to lose. And the one who knows how to retain customers for as long as possible is the most valuable to any business. Therefore, the customer director, the director of customer care, will think about the different titles more today, discuss them, and break them down. Since it's a new position, the titles still vary a bit from company to company. This is the course website. Let's meet those we haven't met before. Also, my name is Mike Pritula. This is a list of companies where I worked: Alpha Bank, STB TV channel, Wargaming Company, Preply ID. I probably first encountered the customer care position at Alpha Bank. As a recruiter, I found many different people for the call center, customer support, and sales. And there were very different names for different departments. I observed how the call center was set up. We had an eco call center. It has always been interesting to me, and it was always around. At Wargaming, for example, things were different. There it was community support. So working with the community, well, the clients there are different, they're players. On STB TV channel, there wasn't really any customer care as such, because viewers number in the millions, and it's clear that there's no direct communication with them. There's PR and promotion. Preply had a customer service team that provided support. What was interesting was that Preply and ID Finance, where I worked, were small IT companies, but the first one operated in the B2C market, the second one in the B2B market. These are completely different levels of support. As a trainer, I have trained over 10,000 people, conducted over 1,000 trainings, and created many training programs. So I have extensive experience, and as a specialist in my field, I've also been recognized with various awards, diplomas, and so on. I have 3 international certifications. Our academy is also quite well known and has received awards, and in my work, I rely on best practices, research, and of course my personal experience. Who's watching this video on YouTube? Please write in the comments who you are and what you do for work. I'll tell you about the homework for now. So look, in this course, as in all our courses, we have homework assignments. Completing them allows you to receive our diploma, so make sure you do them and get feedback. We issue the diploma on the excellent Accredible platform. It's quite international. Google, for example, also issues diplomas this way. Our course itself consists of 8 sessions. Today is an introductory one, where we're getting to know this role and figuring out what it's all about. Then we'll have an audit session with an audit checklist. After that, we'll cover strategy development, team management, process optimization and automation, key metrics and analytics, dealing with difficult customer situations and innovations, and the future of customer service. Because this field is developing very quickly and dynamically, and of course we'll get familiar with it. Today we'll talk about the main tasks, key functions, impact on customer experience and business results, key KPIs, who this role interacts with, and what happens in terms of change management leadership in customer service. And we'll look at an interesting study. Course participants will have access to the full study in the additional materials with more information than what we'll cover today, even though what we will cover is already quite interesting. So let's start with this. Who is the most famous chief customer officer in the world? It's an interesting question to ask because when we talk about CEOs, we immediately think of people, often founders like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, who hasn't been CEO for a long time, Steve Jobs, who ran companies, and so on. There are just famous CEOs, or those who once ran companies like Jack Welch, or now. When we talk about COOs, there are also some famous personalities, as well as sales directors and HR directors. But in the world of chief customer officers, I wonder if you know of any people or look up to any personalities as role models, whether you learn from someone or not. There are actually such lists. Moreover, if you look for them, you'll find that they're generally very new. They started compiling them just last year. Well, here's an interesting list of 50 chief customer officers recommended to follow. It's about subscribing and watching what they publish. There will be a linked article here. The article has links to all their LinkedIn profiles, so you can directly follow them or add them as friends and see what they write. Let's just look at what companies these people are from, who they are, what they call themselves. CCO, Ahmed VP, Customer Experience at Definite Healthcare. CRO, VP Partner, VP Customer Success, Vice President of Customer Success. AVP Global Customer Success, SVP Global Delivery, and in parentheses CCO. VP Customer Experience, VP of Sales and Customer Success, and so on. We'll keep going. We will see that to date it cannot be said that everyone is clearly called a CCO, though it happens in other roles too. Not all marketing directors will necessarily be CMOs. They might have a name like VPO marketing or something. Let's move on. Let's look at the social networks of different companies. We see that in the last about 3 years there have been a lot of hiring of people for the opposition chiropractic office. A few years ago, Spot they hired a man. This, in my opinion, was Dyke's first hire for the position. This is, if I'm not mistaken, about 23 years old. Here's the Spot, a well-known company in the marketing world, in the sales world. There's a lot to learn from them. And so they have this kind of opposition to the chief customer office. Here's another one from the chief customer of the office too. Mainstreaming recently hired there too. Here's more welcome to the team chief customer officer. So right now this post, I would say it's on the upward trajectory. I can't say it's directly experiencing a boom. It's probably going to be more active soon. That is the feeling that the popularity of this chief customer office position is starting to grow. Let's move on. How do the chief customer office explain their role? They say they're the boss, customer success boss, or they say the job title is account director. To date, a key role in the leadership of the company, and that role really came out at the management level, because once upon a time it was people in the chain of command, 3 CEO levels below. Now this person sits at the same table with everyone else: chief marketing office, chief financial office, chief financial office, chief financial office, and so on. This role drives top-level strategy and initiatives, shaping customer success, and of course influencing business growth. So it's strongly about the business role. Here's another interesting description. This is a role that is becoming a recognizable pillar in the world of SaaS as a service. Often it's B2 SaaS, like the same HubSpot, like Salesforce is everything, and any financial system, ERP system is SaaS. And the number of companies embracing this new CSU role is steadily growing. The Customer Experience Board found that 22% of Fortune 100 companies and 10% of Fortune 500 companies have a CCO in their ranks. Well, when we look at the trends over the last few years, we see that more and more companies are creating this role. What does the role involve? It's about delivering exceptional results for clients, developing and implementing all sorts of client program strategies, management of teams working with clients, and here too there is no single structure that is the same for everyone. Commands may have different names and functionalities. Customer success, customer support, and there can be 3 teams in the same company at once, can share cross-functional partnership for the benefit of the client, not losing sight of the customer at all in the company ever, and working with metrics and customer data. Same NPS and others. Here's one typical structure as it might be. There's what's called the CU, that's the leadership team. For example, CEO, COO, CFO as such basic. Next we have CR, HR director, CSO. This could be chief sales officer, and then chief customer officer. And then we have product services, customer segment managers, maybe a CIO information officer, and it's all built around customer journey. That is the customer's journey through the company. Of course, it's all divided into customer segments. That is, customers are grouped into segments, and different teams and different programs can work with different segments. Next, what else is the role called? A recent study done by an organization, I'll recommend subscribing to it later and give you a link, shows that the role of the chief customer officer in this form, in this title, is still very rare. It is just beginning. Often the most popular name is called customer access manager. Could be senior customer access manager, head of customer, director of customer, customer success team L, VPF customer access, manager of customer access, and others. Experience in directing people who work with data in the function. A lot of people who are pretty experienced, 5, 9 years, 10 and more. 40% of the people who work with customers in the customer success field are experienced people. These are not some entry-level positions. Career, what it looks like, people start with customer success manager, then C, and then director, and then customer office chief. That's how a career can be built. It takes about 10 years. Again, according to the study, to build a career to the position of Chief Customer Office. Next, what kind of clients do these roles work with? Business customers are 84% of the company, individual customers, 2 and 2% of the company, and both at the same time 13% of the company. And the changes since the 23rd year are more business focused, less customer focused. Well, understandably so, because there are a lot of private clients. There's no opportunity to work individually there. Support is getting more and more expensive. Support is being replaced by artificial intelligence. Support is being replaced by chatbots. Support is being replaced by knowledge bases. Tutorials, onboarding is good, and so on. So only where there are business customers, or they are either very large private clients, only there is a department that works with these clients and builds all the work. Otherwise, if it's any kind of mass market, it's a marketing department, a sales department with no focus on the customer service department. The type of product in companies where there is such a role, such a function, a subscription program of some sort, that is, a subscription program more than anything else, more often than not a BAT, some kind of service, a physical subscription product, just a physical product in copper. We see this kind of position. It's most popular just in the software IT business, the maturity of the company where this role exists. And so we can see from these rings that this is going to be a more mature company. In less mature companies, this role is likely not yet. I mean, that part comes later. The more mature a company is, the more they see changes over the year. Big increases in mature companies happened. The culture of the company that has this line of business, customer first, the so-called culture, above all the 42 cents where customer care, customer satisfaction is most important, 19% where primarily sales, 89% 25 cents, marketing 4-1. But in terms of these trends, customer, companies care about customers, most of all form such a department. In which industries is this role most prevalent? I say role, I mean this role manages the client management function, so it's both a role and a function. Information and communications is at the top of the list, followed by finance, 15%, and healthcare, which is healthcare, education, 9-8, and marketing, 17%. That's where most of all we can encounter such a role, such a function. Who do people in this role interact with the most and function with? Sales, sales management, service, marketing, engineering, finance, most of all with sales. That is, sales sell and further accompany, support, and increase sales. That is, do upsells, cross-sells, increase customer retention, and so on. Reactivate customers who, for whatever reason, unsubscribe or start buying less, and other things. Who reports to whom? 30% of the time, this role reports to the CEO. Next, and the role function may report to Chief Office, Sales Director, Marketing Office, extremely rare, and Chief Financial Office, extremely rare. That is, the customer service function will report to the Chief Customer Office, an officer who reports to the Chief Executive Office. The size of the team towards this Chief Customer Officer here, 5 people. And I looked at the studies, they didn't publish the proportions, by the way. For example, how much is a client, by the way, by my clients, where then, how many clients per team member, or what are the proportions to employees? It's just that the study says that there is some correlation with the size of a company's team, meaning the larger the company, the more likely there will be a team is bigger, but it also happens that the company is small, but a third of the employees there are custom says custom. There is a very large company, and there are still 2.5 people working with this client area. So there's no pattern of clear patterns, just 5 people is the average size. Key tasks and functions of this area, onboarding and customer education, retention, keeping customers first. Then the resumption of upsell, corpsell, and expansion is what I was saying, which is trying to sell more to the same customers. Then building customer relationships, 19%, management and leadership, 11%, and improving processes and strategy, 5%. That's what this man does. This is basically what we're going to be studying. Key KP is against which the performance of this area is measured, retention, customer retention. And then there's the change over the year, that is, how much more or less something started to be measured by some indicators during the year. Rate, i.e. customer churn rate, crossover revenue, customer health index, it's such a minor thing. What's that? Customer satisfaction, customer expansion, quick adaptation time to value. What else do we have here? Attention use. So you can see the percentages here because when interviewing people in this area, they were asked, specify the indicators that are most important to you, and you can choose several indicators. So there wasn't one to point out here, just several, so you can see which ones are most important. Well, here is the largest increase for the year. That is strongly retention rate account increases, but I think that is due to the global financial crisis. There is a recession in the world right now. So for every company, they want first and foremost to retain the customers they have. Consequently, the inverse has also increased dramatically. By the time too it had grown. What else? Customer satisfaction more started to measure retention. That is, customer retention, incremental sales are the most important metrics. Even satisfaction, it's close to top metrics, but not top. That is, if you look at the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 metrics higher in popularity than anything. Percentage of process automation. It tells you what percentage of processes are automated in this direction. You see, the most common choice is 1 to 20%. So it's still a personal communication, it's an individual personal relationship, but it's understandable because we've seen that this kind of function exists more in the corporate business, in business. In business, big deals, Large companies, a lot of things are built on personal relationships, very long complex sales cycles, budget approvals, tenders, and so on. Of course, there aren't as many customers either. I mean, big companies only have a handful of major customers. The most significant ones that bring in 50 to 80% of revenue are just a few. Yes, all the others are important too, like insurance. I recently heard a story that NVIDIA, the video card and chip maker, has 3 clients that account for about 80% of their revenue. These are artificial intelligence developers, Elon Musk's company Tesla, then OpenAI, and someone else, I can't remember exactly, maybe Meta, or perhaps both. So just a few customers generate the main revenue, but other customers are also important because they provide stability. Is there an impact from artificial intelligence? Everyone states that there definitely is an impact. So artificial intelligence is definitely having an effect. It's not like everyone fully acknowledges it. As always, there's a certain resistance to all innovations that's present here too. I think it's inevitable anyway. Artificial intelligence as an assistant will be present in every role regardless. Are any sales commissions paid to employees in this area who are responsible for working with customers after sales? In 63% of cases, no. In 36% of cases, yes. Well, if you analyze what kind of commission it is, it's often commission from additional sales, from returning customers, not just for the subscriptions generated by the sales force. Extra sales, some additional things. When this role emerged is also interesting. According to a study conducted in 2010, quite recently, there are about 450 customer service directors worldwide, executives with the title of CCO or comparable authority and responsibilities under other titles, despite the fact that in 2003 there were less than 30 of them in total. The CCO is the newest and smallest component of the executive team. The leadership team is commonly referred to as C-suite, meaning all positions with C-level titles. They're also written as CXO. C, responsible for something, human resources, chief officer, chief, and so on, marketing. And the average tenure in this position is only 29 months, making it the shortest among all senior executives. Not because there's high turnover or anything. The role has emerged and continues to actively develop now. That's why the average tenure of people in this role is very short. There you go. It's an interesting video. It's just starting to develop, but it will develop strongly because competition is growing. Where competition grows, customer relationships are very important. Salary levels. I was surprised that the salary level for this position is very high. For example, COOs have about half as much. Even marketing directors might have less. It's precisely because these people work with the company's most valuable asset, the customers, as I said at the beginning of the class. So the median, if I'm not mistaken, the country isn't specified here, but it was for the US. Yes, this is most likely what I took from US Glassdoor. So in other countries in Europe, in Asia it will be less, but nevertheless, the median is $366,000. The upper quartile is $500,000. It's a very promising position. Next, CCO maturity model. There's an active establishment of, let's say, an industry for these people. Some organizations are emerging that are interested in this role. They're just developing competency models, training programs, certifications, or work models. It's very interesting. And one of Churn's models, the CCO maturity model, suggests 4 levels. The first level is director, then vice president, senior vice president, and finally chief customer officer. It depends on the company's business volume. He also interestingly highlighted 8 key skill areas needed for this role. This table is more detailed. That is the scope, what size of business and team a person manages, level of strategic thinking, level of communication, level of customer engagement, and so on. All these areas are outlined. You can use this model to evaluate yourself and see which areas you have developed and where you've already reached the CCO level and which areas are not yet developed. For this purpose, based on this model, I made a Google spreadsheet for you that will have all these 8 competencies. Well, I only took a screenshot of 4 competencies to avoid too much detail. In these 8 competencies, no, correction. 4 areas, 8 competencies. The competencies are grouped into 4 categories. In the 8 competencies, in each of the 8 competencies, there are 3 statements, which you read and rate on a 10-point scale, how much you're already doing this now, how much you can say this is about you. For example, thought leader, here, there you see. There are 3 dimensions from minimum to maximum, and you look. For example, you search for industry benchmarks and share best practices with clients. The more confident you are about this, the more you're really willing to say, yes, this is definitely about us, the higher you score yourself. Up to 10 and a minimum of 0. Your colleagues and clients turn to you for strategic advice. You incorporate client ideas into the company's strategic planning. Then client relationships. Have you built strong long-term relationships with key clients? You understand clients' strategic goals and their expectations for your product or service. You regularly receive client feedback and use it for improvements. Then we have strategic influence, and the first part is strategic thinking. What does this include? Are you involved in developing the company's long-term strategy? Do you participate in strategy sessions, for example? Your decisions support key business objectives. You propose innovations that can strengthen market position. You manage large-scale changes that impact clients. You have a contingency plan for unforeseen changes, and you implement initiatives that improve client interactions with the company. Then there's operational impact. Do you track and improve key metrics affecting customer experience like NPS and CES? Do you understand the connection between customer metrics and business results? You have a plan to improve metrics that are underperforming. You develop strategies to support clients through difficult economic periods. Do you have mechanisms to identify growth opportunities even during a crisis? You manage costs without compromising customer service quality. Then communications. You effectively convey the value of your work to leadership and key stakeholders. Your presentations and reports inspire the team and strengthen client trust. You know how to use client stories to demonstrate success. And the last three. Have you built relationships with colleagues from other departments? You participate in cross-functional projects to improve customer experience, and you solve complex cross-functional challenges to achieve common goals. There will be an overall percentage, and a pie chart will be created based on your answers. This position is also heavily focused on technology. The number of technologies that can be used here is enormous. It's far more than just CRM. These are solutions for onboarding, automation, time tracking, knowledge-based management, and so on. So for project management, the technology stack is impressive. The more you use the right technologies, the more your processes are developed, automated, standardized, and efficient. Operating model. This is also interesting. As I said, this topic is currently developing. The operating model was also proposed by Roca. It's called framework. It's essentially how we work with the client. There are relationships, engagement actions, and customer value horizons. The direction we focus on, the points we work with. Your homework today will be to simply do a self-assessment using this checklist. See what you know and don't know, and write down which of your new knowledge will bring the highest value to your company. What can you read? A book published several years ago, not the most recent, Chief Customer Officer, but to date probably one of the most recommended. And the second book, this kind of framework, Chief Customer Officer Playbook. These two books can give you a good understanding of such a role, whether it's your current role or your target role for development. I also mentioned I'd share a website where I got the research from. There's a great site. They conduct research, have a community, and offer interesting ebooks. They're not exactly books, more like guides. They offer them for free download. So you can find something interesting and relevant for yourself. What's next? Today we learned about the role, what it entails, how it looks in the world today. Of course, in each company it's something unique. In our second session, we'll discuss how to audit the performance of your customer interaction department. In the third session, we'll talk about developing a strategy, and in the fourth about the team. And then we'll go through the points to give you a complete set of knowledge and tools for effective customer work. That's all for today. Thank you to everyone who was online with me. I invite you to take the course. See you soon. Bye-bye.